And I believe we're live. Can I just get a sound check from the audience? If someone on Twitch could let me know we sound okay, that would be great. But I'm going to start anyway. Welcome to the third event of the L'Atelier Bitcoin Rally Championship. Very excited to host this, and we've got a special guest this time. We have John Egan. Is that right? How I say it? John Egan?
Yeah, it's correct.
From L'Atelier. And this is the man we have to thank for making all this possible. If it wasn't for him and their generosity, we wouldn't be able to hold this tournament. So yeah, we thought we'd get him on the show and just introduce him and just talk about him a little bit, and then talk about why they decided to sponsor this cool event. Just before we kick off, John, I just want to explain to the audience that we're going to do a little bit of an intro first, and maybe about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll go to the main event where the 12 drivers will compete in the third race in about 5 to 10 minutes. We're just waiting for those people to get online and get ready. And after we've done the main event, we'll just do some fun races which anybody can join just to finish off. We're also going to try something a little bit fun here with John in a moment. You can probably see on the screen we have a Q&A and quiz section. So we're going to ask some questions, and the questions will be like about John. It's like, for example, what's your favorite animal or something? A, pigeon; B, dog; C, cat. And in the Twitch chat, you will have to answer with MTX, your gamer tag, and your option. So, for example, MTX, Mandelduck, and option A. If you don't know what a gamer tag is something you get when you make a Zebedee wallet. So if you have the Zebedee wallet, you'll be able to get that gamer tag and enter it there. If you don't have the Zebedee wallet, now's your chance to download it. You can download it at zbd.gg or just Google Zebedee wallet. I'm sure you'll find it. Anyway, without further ado, let me introduce my guest, John. Hey, John, how's it going?
I'm good, Chris. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very, very good. Thanks for being here. So, maybe you just want to start off like who the hell are you? Why are you here?
Well, usually on Sunday evenings, I'm getting my ass kicked by my wife in Mario Kart, so I decided.
Oh, really? That's cool.
This evening, on a pretty routine basis. So I thought this evening I'd spend some time watching other people who are much better than me play karting instead. So the reason I'm here, my name is John Egan. I'm the CEO of a company called L'Atelier. We're a foresight business within BNP Paribas Group. And what we do is we use really large amounts of data and some pretty sophisticated data engines to identify signals that help us forecast the future of technology and societal change. More specifically, we look to try and identify emerging marketplaces and challenges. So a number of years ago, that would have been the emergence of things like deepfakes and privacy concerns. And about 3 years ago, we started working on virtual economy related market opportunities. So that was NFTs back then, and career opportunities within virtual platforms. So the emergence of more and more people who are earning either a supplemental income or a primary income in virtual spaces. And I don't necessarily mean people who are just streaming or who are just esports professionals, but we met people who were doing things like in Second Life, people who were there's a lady who has a business who she creates virtual babies for couples in Second Life, and this is her company, and she employs people and she pays her mortgage and she raises her kids with the income she earns from it. And it was those sorts of jobs that really fascinated us. The idea that people were migrating their life and their work into these virtual spaces. There was something really significant and important in that. I think especially as we saw more and more income and economic inequality, so income inequality, wealth inequality, and declining social mobility, kind of became clear to us that a lot more people were going to start using virtual domains in particular in order to try and generate some level of supplemental income. And that was the incentive at the beginning. That's what led us to this space. So for the last 3 years, we've worked a lot within what we refer to as the virtual economy, which is all these jobs and assets and marketplaces, and done a lot of work in it. So that kind of brought us into contact with you guys, and we do a kind of, I suppose for us, in part, this is kind of community outreach, but a lot of it's learning. A lot of it for us is just getting to understand the people who, like the kind of atmosphere, the culture, the people who participate, why they participate, Is it just for fun, or is the money they make meaningful? Does it change their experience? Is there a significant? Have they migrated to decentralized gaming over centralized gaming platforms as a consequence of this? It's all of those signals that we're kind of always on the lookout for, and this gives us lots of depth that we couldn't really get any other way. You can do research and you can look at data, but nothing really replaces just actually getting in contact with people and having conversations with them and understanding the emerging culture and what the artifacts of that culture are, how people talk to each other, the linguistics and the relationships that people cultivate and what it means to them. So they're all the reasons that we wanted to pursue this.
Oh, that's quite a good response there. So I think kind of two things stuck out there. One is that you're interested in this idea of people kind of earning a real income in the digital realm, right? And that's something we definitely see at Mint Gox. We have with Zebedee as well, we have people who join Mint Gox, and we get these emails saying, "Oh, I'm so happy to have won that tournament. I've earned more playing that than I do in a whole month doing my day job." And like these are people, for example, in like South America, more,
Sure.
not like the UK or the US. Having said that, I think this tournament with a chance to win, I think the first prize here is 25 million sats, but we have half a Bitcoin overall. I think it's even opening it up for people in more developed economies. So yeah, as you said, I think this is definitely going to be a thing going forward. I think COVID has probably accelerated this as well, right? If it wasn't for the pandemic, Mint Gox probably wouldn't exist at the moment, or it would come a few years later.
Yeah.
Go on. You look like you're gonna.
I totally agree with you. I think it was there. It was like on the cliff edge. Like all of the pieces were there. The people with the technology was there. The need was there. The interest was there. And whenever kind of any catastrophe happens or disaster happens or something a really profound event, it tends to just like magnify or amplify the size of the wave. So
Sure.
the wave was there, it was building, and it might have been building slower, but it was accelerated and amplified by COVID. So all of a sudden you had tons of people flooding into these spaces, and we've seen this everywhere. It's not just in gaming. We've also seen it clearly with like the crypto space in the last year has just exploded, and like the meme stocks is something that we did a lot of work on as well. And you can see there's this, and then there's other areas as well. Like I think like for instance, like OnlyFans is a great example of how this migration to digital landscapes is changing people's lives in a really kind of profound way, out of necessity or out of opportunity. And there's lots of other platforms there as well that are kind of indicative of this movement, that because it happened so quickly, it actually created validity within the environment, within the kind of community that's there, that wouldn't have been there otherwise. Because like anybody I think who has ever been involved in like the fringe of nerddom throughout their year or throughout their life has understood that there is a point before something becomes mainstream where people look at you and think you're weird. And that could be like reading sci-fi or fantasy. It could have been
gaming.
People. Yeah, it could have gaming. It could have been kids who are playing Warhammer and stuff as well. Like, and they kind of occupy this space where like, I really enjoy this thing. I really like it, but it is not mainstream, and people look down on me or condescend upon me because I enjoy it. But when it accelerates as quickly as it's done over the last year and a half because of COVID, it actually obliterates that awkward moment and it becomes totally mainstream very, very quickly. So we've kind of, for a lot of people who are moving into the space now, maybe they're 15 or 16, they're going to jump right past that awkward stage where like they struggle for acceptance, and they're going to jump right into that space where this is kind of widespread and mainstream, and they're distilling or deriving some form of influence from it as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think like I remember when gaming was still as a bit of a geeky thing to do, but now like you said that you play games with your wife, and you're a full-grown male, and that's completely normal to do, really, nowadays.
Yeah.
I did the same thing, and the same with crypto. Crypto used to be nerdy, but as we're seeing now, it's not so much. I think we're going to keep this conversation going, but I'm conscious that the audience wants some action. So we're going to chat more during the live event. We can kind of shoot the breeze there. But before I do that, I just want to start off with this with the Q&A quiz, just so people get a feeling for that. So I'm just going to do a test question first, just so people understand it, because this is the first time we're doing it. So the test question is, it's gone out of there we go. Yeah, okay. What did I have for breakfast? A, nothing, I'm fasting. B, toast. C, Greek yogurt. So you have to type that in the Twitch chat, folks. You have to type, MTX, your gamer tag, your Zebedee gamer tag, and then A, B, or C. So this will be a test one. Okay, we got some answers coming through. Okay. Paze said I had toast. Which is someone said B. Okay, people think I'm a toast guy, which is interesting. I don't know what it says about me. C. So we have a few more interesting questions coming with John, but this is just the test one, just because. So Felix Aaron has made a mistake. You have to type MTX, your Zebedee gamer tag, and B. Don't just type B. It won't work. I'll give 10 more seconds on that, folks. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. I'm getting people starting to type now. Okay, I'm going to stop it now, folks. So I stop it here. And the answer is... what did I have for breakfast today? Oh, yeah. Maybe I should look it up. There we go. Answer is C. And the winners are Torryman. So Torryman was the only person who got it right. So, yeah. So that's how it works, folks. So at the moment, it won't send you the sats automatically. We're still working on that feature. But after the post, I'll send you the sats to your gamer tag manually. Anyway, so that's how it works, folks. Let's do a proper one. Okay. Okay, the next one is going to be... Start it here. Okay, here we go. How much is the virtual economy worth each year? And this was an answer we got from John, actually. So after we answer it, John can probably explain a little bit more. So is it A, 10 million plus, B, 1 billion plus, over 1 billion, or C, over 100 billion? So how much do you think the virtual... I guess, does this include like Bitcoin, NFTs, everything? Like, how do you define the virtual economy?
It doesn't include crypto.
It doesn't include crypto.
It includes NFTs, but not crypto.
Okay.
What it does include, to give everybody a kind of lead in, is like it does include like micro purchasing across gaming platforms.
Okay, so this is also, for example, just if you buy some power ups in a game now, like non-crypto, that you're including that in it as well. Interesting.
And I'll explain why in a minute.
Got you. Okay. What people are saying? Most people are saying B. I guess technically, A, B, and C could all be right, but because it's over. But that's just a grammatical thing. So
I think you're gonna have to dish out stats for that, Chris.
No, I'll have. You can update your choice as well, but just to make the point that if C is right, it doesn't mean A or B is also right. Okay. It has to be exclusive. Cool. Okay, I think give 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Well, what's the answer, John?
So it's over 100 billion. So if you want to find out more about this,
so C.
Go to
2 winners. Only 2 winners.
If you go to, so we did a huge project on this a year and a half ago. If you go to atelier.net, Atelier is the company.net, and you go to our projects page, you'll see a project called the Virtual Economy. If you jump into that, we've done a huge project on the size of the space. Now, there are some caveats in that it's an enormously difficult thing to size, because in some ways you're comparing apples and oranges. Like, so if we're comparing like the digital real estate marketplace in Decentraland, which is quite small but really interesting and totally core to what we're talking about, as part of the virtual economy versus centralized gaming platforms and their microtransactions. It feels dissimilar, but the value that we ended up placing in this after the research analysis that we did was that it's currently over 100 billion. I think it's expected to grow as well to 121 this year. So it's enormous. It's absolutely massive. But that is a huge cumulative value of all of the capital that is spent globally on digital or virtual platforms for digital or virtual utility across the course of the year. So it's predominantly gaming, and we haven't found a way yet to abstract the decentralized proportion of that. Something we're working on, though. So,
yeah, I think. Do you think that the virtual economy will overtake the physical economy eventually, or so lots of people say that?
I mean, it seems. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of it's a difficult question to answer because it's actually a question I think it's most often asked with an intention. It's like it's advocacy uh, rather than like it's we believe in this. We want the answer to be yes because we think this is really important. But let me answer it a little bit differently. Here's how I think the virtual economy is actually going to expand over the next decade or so. And it's for a lot of people, I'm sure watching this, you guys will have been kind of metaverse utopists, idealists for a long time. Love the idea of the metaverse. The metaverse in concept hasn't really changed now for 25 years. I knew a red snow crash. Like it doesn't actually hold up very well now. And even I think with Ready Player One or something, you still have this wholly virtual space. I think in all likelihood what's going to happen is the virtual is going to bleed over into the physical. And in the physical landscapes, in the cityscapes that we walk around, we're going to see through mixed reality lens where we're going to see a new metaverse emerge on top of it. And not just one metaverse, but like an infinite number of metaverses that can be cultivated on top of it. And that's where the real opportunity is, because within those physical spaces that we interact with, we walk around, there's so much opportunity for every single physical item to interact with you, and also for the creation of a whole universe of virtual items. For example, the simple ones are things like virtual pets that can interact with people and the environment around you, and other virtual pets as well. And it's all kind of experienced through virtual lens, where either glasses or contact lenses. And there's been so much investment in those two technologies over the last couple of years and by big companies that it's kind of reached a point of critical mass where it's kind of undeniable now at this point that in 15 years time we are all going to be walking around with mixed reality lens or infrastructure, and the universe that we see through that is going to be a kind of a strataverse that sits one layer on top of the other, depending on the lines of data that we have subscribed to, our own personal experience, and the world that we've tried to cultivate. I think for me, that's the future of the virtual economy. It's not just in digital spaces, it's also in digi-physical spaces and virtual spaces.
Have you been talking to Ryan from Aglet, perchance? Because we had him as a host.
And I have. Ryan and I get on very well, actually.
Yeah, he had a similar type of thought that it's like he said it's not like the Matrix. You have the blue pill or the red pill. He said it's like the pink pill, where it's a mixture of the real and the virtual. So that's kind of, I think, what you're saying is a similar thing.
I'm gonna claim that I'm Ryan's muse in this case. This is something that we've been writing about for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to claim source on this. But yes, Ryan and I are very aligned on this as well. So we've talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Just let people know, I'm starting the main race, the race 3. So we're just waiting for the people to come online. If you did qualify, please come online. If you're having issues, message me. We did have a couple of people say they have computer failure or something today, so we might be out a few people. But yeah, I'll just give people a few minutes to join, and then we'll do the main race, and after that we'll do another question with John. Where were we? Yeah, so we were talking about the I asked if you think the virtual economy will be more than the physical economy, but you said you won't be. You basically said you won't be able to differentiate per se.
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
will be mixed.
It's the wrong way to ask the question.
Sure.
I
think so too.
It's a question that's asked from 1992 about the future, rather than the question that's asked from 2021 about.
That's fair enough.
And I think that's why a lot of the time, I think this is a really common thing when we're talking about this space, because it's so ambiguous. The most valuable thing is clarity and precision and specificity, about when we're talking about the future, and it's not an either or anymore. It is a hybrid, a blend, and I think that the opportunity there is just enormous. I talk about virtual pets a lot because it's one single thing, but virtual pets is a multi billion dollar business. Like from Tamagotchis to Pokemon Go, there has been a lifetime of virtual pet explorations that people have been super interested in, really excited about, and it's only going to become more and more significant. So I think that's, and then as you add AI components into that, and more access to neural nets and effective machine learning, then those virtual agents become smarter, and you've got actual virtual assistants that can follow you around in whatever form you want them to be in. And that's really important because then that creates this potential opportunity for cities to compete against each other. If you're living in one city, you might choose to live in a city not because that's where you work. You might work in a different city and work remotely, but you might choose to live in a city because it's got a better neural network, or it's got better data to feed into a common neural net that provides a custom opportunity for the citizens who live within that city. And cities might begin to compete with each other on that basis. Like their technological offering might be why people live there, and that will have loads of consequences as well. But I think that's probably more in line with the future we're beginning to see emerging.
I know that people, when they choose a house, they'll choose it because of internet connection. I chose the house I have now because I was promised I would get fiber. After I moved in, I didn't get it, but so that's what you're saying. But you said it's a neural network. Like I was a bit confused what you meant. They moved to a city because it has a better neural network. Is that just a term for like what we will call the internet in the future? It'll be.
No, it's more. It's really strong advanced AI capacity. So a combination of machine learning and data science that doesn't require guidance. It's self-learning, doesn't require lots of manual input. So the ability for AI effectively to augment technological propositions through a natural experience curve. So it is developing and growing all of the time, and is able to. And there are a couple of neural nets that exist already, a couple of big ones, like Google and Microsoft are really effective ones that people can buy access to. And we're kind of at the beginning of this like decade of great change. We've got these like significant breakthroughs in the commercialization of quantum computing, these real advances in material science, and then really significant advances in the usability and the affordability of certain AI components. All of that is coming together, is going to manifest within these virtual landscapes that will allow people to build and create. And I don't know if we want to talk about NFTs, but like NFTs, everyone's losing their minds about NFTs over the last couple of months, and people have kind of been divided into this is amazing or this is ridiculous, two camps. But ultimately, NFT art is a sideshow. Like it doesn't really matter if you're for it or against it. Just put it to one side. What NFTs do is to provide infrastructure, economic infrastructure for creating digital assets with provenance, unique digital assets, so we can own them. And that means that we can build landscapes within virtual spaces that people can derive value from. And a very simple example would be, right now, if somebody buys a plot of land in CryptoVoxels or Decentraland, and Decentraland is probably a better example, and they build a casino in that space, and people come to that casino, they're generating real cash flows through that asset, and that's very, very meaningful. So that's I think the trajectory that we're traveling here with NFTs, and everybody can engage in that: cities, countries, individuals.
I definitely want to get into some of the projects that you're interested in and NFTs in a bit. Just a little bit of a public service announcement. We're waiting for 2 more players who have told me, give me 2 minutes, I'm just updating or something. So we'll give a few more minutes. My dog just shouted warning. I think it's okay. Cool. Anyway, so let's just do another question while we're waiting for those people for the audience. So hopefully this one should be right. Okay, this one. When did John get his first Bitcoin? A little bit of a personal question here. Okay. But this is the Bitcoin you lost in a boating accident, we should just confirm. But A, 2010, B, 2015, C, 2017. So when did John get his first Bitcoin? Well, we also have a question from the audience about NFTs, so just let the personnel, I'll answer that in a second. Felix, Aaron, and they've answered it wrong. Anyway, okay, so B, people are saying B. B seems to be a popular choice. I know my brother was offered Bitcoin in 2010, but he didn't take it. So I don't know anybody who's got one in 2010, but if you did get in 2010, that would be quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, people got it in 2010. They didn't hold it. Who held Bitcoin from 2010?
That's true.
It's like
you sold when it went to 10 cents or something.
Yeah, we can talk about this in a minute, but
okay. Someone said A. Hamid says A.
Thank you. Whoever said A, I appreciate it.
I should have put 2006 in there to see if we had anybody who's completely ignorant or something. Okay, I'll give 10 more seconds, folks. We got somebody else joined. Great. So I think we're waiting for one more person who should be joining in a second, and then we'll kick off. I think because two people said they had computer issues, so couldn't join. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the answer is, John?
2015.
2015.
Beginning of 2015, when it was at 198, I bought in and I held it to 398 later that year. And then I was like, this is ridiculous. It's so high. I'm going to sell everything. So I sold all of my Bitcoin. And then I sat there and watched it climb to 1,000. And then I changed my mind. I was like, okay. I got back in at 1,000 at the beginning of 2017, and then rode it the whole way through the crash. And then I held all my Bitcoin up until April this year, when I sold most of it again when it crossed 10,000, thinking, I'm just going to get out of this now. It was just Bitcoin though. I have held all my Ethereum, Litecoin, all my alts, but I sold most of my Bitcoin in April, unfortunately, thinking now is the time to get back into stocks. And I was wrong to do that. But I can talk about that more. Yeah, but I'm really enjoying the person who's spinning around on France at the moment.
Yeah. I actually don't know how they do that, and I made the game. I couldn't do it myself.
I don't know how much time. I'm happy to talk about this a little bit more. We can get into it while the race.
Yeah, let's do it. I think we're just waiting for one more person to join, who should be in any second. It's a shame to start without them.
On that point, I mean, look.
Yeah,
everybody's got a Bitcoin story, and like it's this kind of weird. There's very, very few people who bought Bitcoin pre-2017 and rode it through the crash and didn't sell it. And there's fewer people who bought it prior. There's fewer people who bought it pre-2015 and held on to it. Yeah, of course, there's a few people, and good for them, the people who've held it. But it is there's not many, and so it's one of those things you can't feel regret about it. You kind of, if you got in early and you made some money out of it, fantastic. But I think the thing about Bitcoin, which I always come back to, is the vast majority of people who hold Bitcoin, they're not holding Bitcoin because they believe in Bitcoin. They're not holding Bitcoin because they use Bitcoin in any kind of functional way. They're in Bitcoin because they think there's an opportunity to make outsized gains, and it's more accessible to a retail market than most traditional investment classes are. And that's problematic in some ways, I think, as well, and something which needs to be considered in the longer term too. And it's kind of a curious, especially given what's happening at the moment with like the kind of the crypto bull market that we're in. It's really interesting to see the dynamic shift towards this mass market.
I suppose like I hang around a lot of Bitcoin maximalists. I would say that I do know a lot of people who bought like before 2015 and they've held and they've sold like little bits, but they've never sold it. And their idea is that like they can't even imagine converting it into fiat because it will be like the standard someday, right? So it's like they don't need to ever have to sell it or something. So they're holding like long term. So there are those kind of like diehard people. But I agree, like, there's very few people, like my brother, I gave him one Bitcoin at like £300, $300, and he sold it at 600 to buy plasterboard. you know. So it's like, so there you go. I don't
That's
blame
very
him,
good.
but yeah, you know.
But
Anyway,
I look, it's a fascinating conversation that nobody can really be right or wrong on. But I'm an economist by background, um, and my experience, and I'm an economist by background who's been investing in crypto for a long time. I did, relatively speaking, a long time, since 2015, and I I always kind of find it difficult to imagine a world where Bitcoin in particular is the default. It doesn't. I understand the intention behind it, but is I think unlikely in our lifetime. So that would be the
yeah, I
case.
suppose it's something they would say like, well, I can buy a Tesla directly with Bitcoin. So I think
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
waiting for more. They can buy more things directly with Bitcoin or something, maybe, rather than it
But then,
like becoming like the base currency of the world. But some people
but
are waiting for that. So,
but it's
uh,
that that is one thing I do that I think it's totally like it's not really feasible that it becomes a
yeah,
currency mechanic. If it's digital gold, that's a proposition
sure.
that I think is understandable and it's simpler. But I think part of the problem here is that, like, so Satoshi clearly and a lot of the people who were involved with Bitcoin at the early stage were brilliant at two things. They were genuinely brilliant at economics and generally genuinely brilliant at the technology side. That's a very, very rare symbiosis. There's not many people who can claim that. Like, they're both very, very challenging fields. But that is no longer the case. There's very few people who are really strong on the economic side who are still involved in Bitcoin at a high level. And there's so many different participants now. So I think that is,
I
and,
sup-
sorry, and they're
yeah,
technologists at a high technology level. And that always kind of gives me pause because I so every single day I hear Bitcoin maximalists get the economics wrong. And the economics is, without going into kind of a lecture
sure.
here, economics is a problem that humanity has to deal with. Like, Keynes talked about this idea a century ago. John Maynard Keynes, a brilliant Cambridge economist,
He
kind
wasn't
of
an
the
economist, was he? By I thought he was by trade. He wasn't an economist, but I think he did economy kind of. You know, he was a somewhat polymath, but maybe he went into
oh yeah, yes, he was.
economics
The guy
later.
was a really
But
brilliant, brilliant
yeah,
mind.
brilliant. Yeah, sure.
But I think would classically be recognized as, like, he's one of the three great economists: Adam Smith,
Sure.
John Maynard Keynes, and and,
Well,
and Karl Marx. The three economists that have kind of built the world
I'll
around
say
us.
infamous,
Um,
maybe.
well, I think, with Keynes, there's a lot to be said about Keynesian economics. Keynes was ultimately a person who believed that he wrote this essay. It's worth reading. It was like a letter to my grandchildren. He wrote it in 1922, so 100 years ago, and he wrote about how in 100 years' time, technology and the accumulation of capital will have freed us all from the burden of labor, that we won't have to work anymore because technology will be so productive at that point. And the intention behind it was like we're going to free ourselves from the burden of economy. Economy is a plight that we need to deal with as humanity, and ultimately we're trying to free ourselves up so we can focus on self-expression and our core humanity over labor. Now, what's really curious is, over like, neoliberalism has created this massive gulf in class structures, but it has succeeded in the top classes now, this like very wealthy class, in achieving what Keynes suggested, i.e., these people own so much assets that the assets are now accumulating capital without them having to work at all. So there's a redundant class at the top of the pyramid that don't need to create any value whatsoever, but their assets will continue to make them richer, will cover their cost of living, and will continue to make them richer, which is what Keynes ostensibly was saying. But he imagined it in a
For
fairer
everybody,
society,
sure.
for everybody, yeah.
Because people
That
blame Keynesianism for that kind of asset inflation. All right.
yeah, I mean, like, I think neoliberalism is we're probably
Sure,
getting off
sure.
track
Yeah.
here, but like neoliberalism generally is kind of the enemy for anybody who believes in an equal society. But because neoliberalism is kind of about the maximization of financial capital. So, what you've got a lot of techno libertarians and like crypto maximalists kind of, you've reached this point of frustration and anger where they realize that the ladders have been burnt that allowed people to climb the ladder, like they
It's
climb
true.
up the class pyramid. There's no way that somebody on an average wage is going to be able to buy their own home in their 20s, and they're going to be able to afford multiple children, and they're going to go on a holiday twice a year and retire at 65. That life doesn't exist anymore. So it is that dream that most of us were fed in order to feed us into a system, education, get a job, yada yada yada. It's obviously broken. So when that becomes the case, people look for other ways around that. And I think what we're seeing is the virtual economy and the crypto economy more generally, and also emerging data economies, like the influence economy as well. These are all new digital economies that are being built to facilitate people's class ascent, like to circumvent the kind of the constraints that have been put in
Yeah.
place. So like anyway, we can talk more about this. I don't want to bore
Yeah.
everybody, but like
No, I think it's interesting. I want to get into this, but I'm just going to start the race, and then we can kind of chat a bit more while the race is going. So we've got everybody who's going to be here. Two people said they had like engine failure. Let's call it that. So this is the third race of the Atelier Championship, and it will be 20 laps of the Halloween track called Pumpkin Crypt.
I heard everyone hates this track.
Yeah, it's a difficult track, yeah, but I have to do all the tracks, so. But let's see how it goes. Some people like it if it's their best lap. If people are better at different tracks.
Sure.
Anyway, so people are joining.
Good luck, everybody.
Yeah, but that might be a bit too noisy. I think. Let me just turn the volume down here. There you go. Cool. So, yeah, it's hard to say anything at the beginning because people just kind of sort themselves out. Like, we can't say who's first, but because going back to your point then, I think you were basically saying that, I guess as a fairly younger guy, I luckily made it onto the housing ladder with thanks to Bitcoin, to be honest. But it's hard if you make money, there's nowhere to put your money. You can put it in a bank account, which has like practically the interest rate is lower than real inflation, let's say.
It is.
So
it is,
it's like if it weren't for Bitcoin appreciating, it would be very hard for me to get the money for a deposit or something. So is that what you're kind of saying? Young people are finding these, they can't afford physical assets anymore, but they can get in on the ground floor on some digital assets. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Look, and I'm not going to speak for everybody here because I'm guessing there's people from all around the world on the stream, but a lot of us, people around my age, we left university and came into one massive global recession, and then we were told this is it, the once in a lifetime one. And then for a lot of people are being hit again now by the second COVID. Once in a lifetime global recession. And despite these two massive global recessions, for some reason, asset prices have continued to climb and climb and climb and climb. So like wage inflation has stagnated. One I use all the time, this is a proxy example, but in London over the last 20 years, wages have increased by 44% in 20 years. But the average house price in London has increased by 545% in the same period of time. And executive pay in that period of time has increased by over 1,300%. So very clearly, there's a massive gap being created. And this is like while productivity has continued to increase throughout this time, but labor is not getting paid effectively. And that is a significant economic problem. I think like you look at that neutrally, you realize this is a real issue. And to my mind, a lot of the protests that we've seen since 2008, whatever it happens about it, Gilets jaunes in France, whether it's Brexit or Trump or whatever, so much of it has been economically driven. Like it's people who know that this isn't fair. They know that their life is getting worse. They know that the kids' lives are going to be worse than theirs are. And like that, that feeling sucks. So it's for a lot of people, they're looking for an alternative way. And it just so happens that for a generation of kids who grew up on the internet and gaming, they've got a set of skills they're the first generation of these skills, and they can put them to good use. And like gaming is a great example of it. And the frustration I think with gaming over the last 15 years has been we invest so much time in gaming and we create these very unique, distinctive assets within the game, but we're not allowed to extract that value. And the frustration of that investment, a closed loop, that centralized system. And I think that the opportunity provided by decentralized gaming, the promise is, look, we'll provide you a fantastic gaming experience, but will also allow you to extract the value that you create within the game is such a kind of a fantastically equitable solution for people. That's really really meaningful. I think that's extraordinarily progressive.
Yeah, I think a lot of young people, right? You know, they don't really have the know-how, or like you said, they don't have the initial capital to kind of, let's say, play the financial games. Like I'm sure if you're financially minded, you understand the stock market derivatives. You can kind of, you know, do well out of the new economy. But for most young people, they understand gaming well, right? So,
Yeah.
and maybe I guess this would be a kind of like a DeFi in gaming type scenario.
Yeah, and I would even challenge the first part. I like, we tend to hear the examples of the people who do well, but they're
Sure.
one in a million. Like it's so difficult to do well in finance because you're competing against the world's biggest computers. They're the biggest companies. They own the largest computing
I,
power, and they're
I mean
go
by
ahead.
do well, I mean like they do better than just like they don't do well, but they do better than just like putting their money in the bank
Money
account
in
or
the
something.
bank.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
So
yeah, that's
like
fair.
they put it in an
Especially over the last
index
few
fund or
years.
something. I'm not sure, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But even like it's that could turn in a
sure,
moment as well. They're not
that's
necessarily
true.
developing a skill set, and like I kind of make this example. If you're living in a major city, if you're living like in London or in New York or Tokyo or kind of an equivalent or a Paris or
Yeah.
wherever, if you're earning 100,000 euros equivalent, say £100,000, $100,000, 100,000 euros, by the time in most of those cities, the cost of your accommodation annually is between 40 and 56% of your net income. So you've got say half of your income left after pay. You have like you've worked all this time. You've just like put a roof over your head, and you've only got half of your income left. And then on that, you've got to buy groceries, buy clothes. You've got to travel, all the rest of it. You've got shit all left at the end of it. So for the majority of people, even though they might be earning a lot of money, nominally speaking, in some of these big cities, they've actually got very little left over afterwards. So what you're going to do, what we're beginning to see is that income provided by primary jobs are no longer really um, facilitating the lives that people expect them to facilitate. So all these like supplemental opportunities through like people who are streamers or influencing or gaming becomes really really attractive to people. So they enjoy it. They have much more control. They can do it from wherever they want to. They feel more in tune with the culture and the environment and the
But
people,
also,
and they can make a lot of money.
there's economies around gaming, right? It's not just playing the games. You know, for example, you
Yeah.
might offer services to gamers, and I remember Korea had this thing where you could hire a company to play the game for you when you couldn't play it, just to kind of keep grinding or something like that, right? So, like, that's just one
I think
example of a new job, I suppose.
yeah.
But like, you know, there'll be these new types of people. Maybe make, I don't know, equipment or assets for, or maybe you know they make
Yeah.
things for the game. I don't know, skins, this kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah, I remember about 10 years ago, I met these two kids. They were like 21, 22, and they were making 20 something grand a day making skins.
20 grand,
Um,
wow.
yeah, weapon skins a
Yeah.
day. Like, and that was 10 years ago. So I don't know how they're doing now, but like boosters, like Sony about now announced that they're going to build a platform to facilitate boosting. So for serious players who want to get paid for boosting
Sorry,
new,
boosting. What does boosting mean?
yeah,
I don't know what
Well,
boosting
so
means.
boosting means like leveling. Like say
Okay,
for
yeah.
instance, you're really good at the game, and I suck. I can pay you
Got you.
to boost my character for me. It's risky because I have to give you my credentials to
Sure.
log in on my behalf. But then I come back and I've got this amazing character, or I've got great assets, or
Interesting.
whatever it happens to be. So and it's really popular, but it's against the terms of service typically. So
Sure.
usually publishers will prohibit it, and if they catch you, they'll ban you and they'll kill off your character. Again, coming back to this centralized censorship thing, but it is. Sony have actually kind of realized now that this is a thing that people want.
I
So
guess
let's
yeah.
make it normal.
I guess you can't really do that in the real world, right? If you want to learn guitar, you can't get someone to play for you. or something, right? But in the digital world, this is a whole new paradigm, right?
You can't, but maybe like it's
Maybe with
people pay
Neuralink or
people.
something.
Well, people pay people to make them look better and sound better all the time. Like
True. That's true.
people,
Actually, you're not wrong. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like because the appearance matters. So like if you think about like Instagram, for instance, people are constantly trying to edit how they appear because they want to fulfill the kind of appearance of a certain lifestyle, a particular brand, and they pay people to do that for them.
Well, even going
Um,
back to guitar, right? You know, I'm sure like most of the popular bands, the guitar players aren't really that good, but they probably got a good producer who knows how to, you know, get them to sound good
auto
when they
tune,
record,
like
right?
in
Yeah,
singers.
auto
Yeah,
tune and stuff like that. You know,
so like it is,
maybe.
appearance matters so much. We value appearance so much in society that like a lot of, so for, some people just want to have the access that comes with significance like that,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. That's quite interesting.
um,
But going back to
but
your point about London, actually, I have quite I'm a quite an interesting twin study because I'm an identical twin, and me and my brother both went to the same university and studied the same thing, computer science. However, I continued on as a programmer, and he went on to do something that's not programming. But he lives in London, and I don't. He has to work in an office, and I was lucky that I could get employed remotely. So I was able to kind of get a good salary or good, and then also live in a cheap part of the world, or live in a cheap part of the where he is stuck in London. We have about the same salary, but what he gets for his life in London is quite, well,
yeah,
it's a nice area, but he lives in a shoebox, kind of thing.
yeah, like I
So
lived in London for 7 years, and it is not good value for money, and
yeah,
yeah. That's a problem everybody's facing at the moment, but I think like we're part of a generation that's beginning to realize maybe we don't need to live in the big city
well, especially
for
when
our
you're
whole
locked
career.
down for a year.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
I,
and like there's something quite attractive. I kind of feel like a good instinct is that over the next number of years we're going to see the rise of like lots of new villages
mm,
and small towns. I think the UK is going to be a great example of this because a lot of those small towns already exist and they're just waiting
mm,
to be filled with young people again because for the last 30 years there's been an exodus of young people going to the
mm.
cities. But now a lot of those people are trying to get out of there because it's not affordable anymore, and if they don't need to be there for work because they're working remotely, they're going to end up back like especially people will fall out of London into Surrey and
Yeah,
into the
and
home counties.
it's not like when I was growing up in the 90s, like only the cities had good coffee shops. You get the same good coffee stores everywhere now, right?
Yeah,
Everywhere's pretty much gentrified. So,
yeah,
and you can actually afford to buy, a coffee, more often, right? When you live in, as
yeah.
you said, if you live in the London, you can't afford to buy, you can't afford to really enjoy it. Having said that, first place is just finishing now. Actually, we've been talking, and so
Oh, congratulations,
yeah, so
you won.
Depetan. So he actually came first last time as well. So he was in the leaderboard. We can see in the right. Before joint first was Tokal P101 and Depetan, but now it seems that Depetan's first. So I think he might take the lead over Tokal P101, who's finished second. And Paze looks like he's finishing third, and Paze finished eighth last time. So that's quite interesting. This must be a track he's good at. But basically, I think this probably means that Depetan, I think I'm saying it right, has overtaken Tokal P101 and will be first on the leaderboard. Having said that, when we've done tournaments before, Tokal P101, he's often stayed second, but on the last few races, he's become first and managed to finish first always. So he's a current champion, Tokal P101.
Okay.
But yeah,
I would
so
love to know more about the racers. Like,
yeah, a lot of them are quite private, so that's a good thing
well,
about.
even if they even like, I don't necessarily mean doxing themselves, but like just a little bit more about like even kind of why they're racing, what brought them to it. Like I'm presuming these like that maybe the handle is just unique to this as well. Maybe they're not shared handles across different platforms. But
Yeah, I think we are reaching out to them to get an interview. Um,
yeah, it'd be great. That'd be really cool. I'd love to see that.
yeah, unfortunately, my computer just had a hiccup and stuff froze for a second, so the race stopped. Unfortunately, um, so yeah, sorry folks about that. I'm gonna have to say that I'll just get the last standings of people, and yeah, that will be their final position. Um, yeah, Windows had an issue then, and then stuff froze. Um, that's a bit annoying. But I think we did get the top three finish. But the other people, yeah, I'm just gonna have to whatever you finished at when the my game cut out for a second. That's what your final position will be. Annoyingly, but I think people were finishing up anyway. Um, damn it, little annoying little error there. Um, cool.
Somebody bouncing a keyboard off a wall somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, it's annoying. Weird. Yeah, it's like, yeah. Windows does that sometime. Cool. Anyway, I was going to do another question, and then we'll do some fun races. So
Sure.
let's get another question up here. Okay. Ooh. Okay. No, it's my internet is having issues today. Okay. This question: what is John's favorite game? What is John's favorite game? So if you can write in the Twitch chat. Okay. People think it's Mario Kart because you're hosting this game. You did say you played Mario Kart with your wife.
Yeah, we have a Switch that we play Mario Kart on a lot. She's good at it. Better than I am.
Okay. What is John's favorite game? So, BA. Actually, not that many people are saying C. Let me just get a fun race on the go as well. So I'll actually be playing. Actually, yeah, I might play one of these fun races and give people the sats. I'm going to choose the Attilia track, which is a track we made specifically for the for this event. Just speed there a little bit. Okay, folks, I am going to stop the question. And John, what is the answer? What is your favorite game? Witcher
What do people
3?
guess?
Oh,
Which
well,
was
people probably guessed A and B, so I
my
think
favorite game is Red Dead. RD2 is the most extraordinary game I've ever played. I think so. I mean, like I've always enjoyed gaming. Start out with a NES and then into a SNES with Super Mario World and then into PlayStations. And I think the thing I probably before Red Dead, I really enjoyed the new God of War. I thought that was fantastic. Really liked it. But Red Dead was just mind blowing in terms of the capability. The open world environment is just amazing.
that's
Blew me
what.
away.
Yeah, I've never played it, and that's what turned me off. It's like it would take up too much of my life. I thought because it's meant to be
Yeah, well,
such a great game.
yeah. My wife and my brother-in-law used to jokingly call it what was they called it like horse trainer 9000 or something. So like you spend a lot of time on the back of a horse riding across the American West, but there's something really epic about it that I enjoyed, and just the detail and the nuance. It's a wholly different experience. It's unlike any game I have ever played, and the opportunity to integrate, third parties into it, I think, is enormous. So I love Red Dead Redemption 2. It's been on my mind a lot recently. I haven't been playing, I haven't been gaming much at all recently, and I really wanted to go back and do it again. But yeah, that's the one that sticks out. Um,
No, have you played any? I'm assuming you played Mario Kart, but have you played The Witcher 3?
yeah, I have.
I
Unfortunately, I
I
came to
I,
the Witcher.
I just
Go
finished
ahead.
it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
I came to The Witcher 3 after I played God of War, and that dampened it down a bit for me because God of War was this kind of work of art masterpiece, like open world type game as well, and The Witcher 3 looks looks kind of old in comparison to it, and that definitely impacted my enjoyment of it. Where if I'd have inverted that and played them the other way around, I think I would have enjoyed both of them a lot because the Witcher 3 is like it's a whole storyline I enjoy as well. It's a world space that I enjoy, but it felt clunky after playing God of War.
Is that because The Witcher 3 was an older game? You think would it be around about the same time?
It's purely because it's an older game. That's it. It's a
Yeah,
couple. It's a couple of years younger or older. Sorry, and God of War was just. It felt like kind of a natural evolution. Like
sure.
so, Yeah, but it was really just an age profile thing. And if I had played Witcher 3 first, I think I would have really enjoyed it. But after playing God of War, I was a bit like my expectations now for games are way up here. Um,
Yeah, sure.
so
I believe they are making another Witcher. I think, but they've been busy
I'm
with
sure
Cyberpunk, so they're trying to find resources to
a
make the
disaster.
next
Yeah.
Cyberpunk and Witcher. Cyberpunk was a disaster, you think?
Well, I mean, like
Oh,
it took 47 years to make, and then when they finally released it, it was garbage. So
really? Lots of
and
people.
and,
I heard
and
lots of
buggy.
people said it was actually great, but that was just like the media being the media.
Well,
Or do you think it wasn't good? I haven't played it
Well, it
myself,
was
but
definitely super buggy. And well, so I'll put it this way. So I think it would have. It's a good game, but when you hype something up that much for that long, and you tease it
sure.
and you tease it and you tease it,
Yeah,
you,
you
you've
did.
raised the stakes so much. It's hard to live up to that. I think that was a real problem it had. Look, continuous kind of patches improving it all the time, but I don't know if it'll ever kind of get past that disappointment um, it started out with. But look, that's just my opinion. I think anyway. I think that I had kind of expected it to be even better than the standard that Red Dead had set, and it wasn't. It wasn't that. It wasn't better than the standard that God of War had set 2.5, 3 years prior to its release. So
Yeah,
but I think that with the success of the Netflix show as well, I think that Witcher it'll definitely see more games. Like it's a huge franchise now. It's going to make a fortune for people.
yeah. Because I didn't know The Witcher before the Netflix show, so I got into that. So I watched the Netflix show, then I got the game, and I found out the character was very very different. So I like in the Netflix show, the character is quite he's quite he's quite sort of wooden, I suppose. And then in the
Yeah,
game, he's quite funny and he jokes and he's sarcastic. So I thought maybe the actor in the show can't act, or but someone told me the books are very different to the game. The game kind of did its
yeah,
own
yeah.
thing, so that was why.
Well,
So
so Henry Cavill, the actor
yeah,
in the show, he's a serious Witcher fan. Like he's
I
read
remember.
all the
Yeah,
books, and like he's played the games and things, and like
he
he
begged them
he kind
to be part of it, didn't he, or something?
yeah, he sees it kind of like as an homage to the world and to the characters. So, and the first series was pretty low budget. I'm kind of
Sure.
really interested to see what they manage in the second
Yeah,
series with some actual budget to throw at it.
but I wonder if like the pandemic made it like they couldn't really spread their wings as much,
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
that's
Very true.
like they had to rush it, because they could, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. But that's true. Yeah, but yeah, the first one I could kind of see it. I did like it. I could see it had potential. I liked it, but as you said, it was like, I think it was a bit, the parts of it that were a little bit
you could
maybe,
just tell that they were a bit strapped for cash in places, but it was like I like
yeah,
Henry
and some of the,
Cavill. I think he was good for the role, and the fact that he cared about it so much
true,
actually adds a charismatic value to it. I think when you know the
yeah.
lead really cares about
But
honoring the role. I think that makes a big
I
difference.
think it gave it a little bit of charm though. The kind of it wasn't super professional. Kind of let it like give it more of a cult following, and it's still our little
Yeah, yeah,
charm, right? It hasn't been taken over by Hollywood or something where,
yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe
Because it got kind of slammed by the critics when it was released
yeah,
first,
of
but
course it would.
despite that, it had the best viewing numbers of any show Netflix had ever released.
Well, that's the
Like
whole
that,
Rotten Tomatoes thing, isn't it? The critics
yeah.
and what the community like are often very different, right?
Often very different,
So,
yeah. Sometimes people want something like I think there's a lot to be said for something that knows what it is as well. When something thinks it's really serious and it's actually crap, then everyone knows it's crap and it has no appeal. But when something kind of is authentically genuine about what it is, like it knows it's kind of low budget, it knows it's a bit of fun, it's indulgent, it's a bit silly at times, but it's okay with that. I think that makes a huge difference to the audience. The audience really care about that, and they respond to it.
yeah,
You got that smash, Chris.
yeah, I did. That's because I'm talking to you. I blame you.
I know. It's totally my fault.
No, it's all good. So somebody should be able to withdraw my sats then.
Yeah.
So I won't keep you too long, John. We're just going to do some fun races now. But I just wanted,
Sure.
before you go, I just want to talk about NFTs because there is a lot of uh, interest in NFTs, but I suppose like every hype cycle, there's a lot of negativity and there's a lot of like half the people say it's a scam and half the people say no, it's a future, and then there are people in between. But you seem to be someone who's studied this quite a lot, and as an economist as well, you're probably quite well to comment on it. But like, what's your view on like NFTs? Do you think have a lot of potential in gaming directly, or do you think they're more as better as collectibles for artists, or I don't know, like how do you see that whole thing?
So yeah, I think you should like just ignore all the NFT art stuff. Just put it to one side and say, well, that's interesting to look at, but it's got nothing really to do
So you're
with
not
the
interested in that?
future.
Okay.
No, no, we are. Yes, we are observationally interested in it. But I think like for if you try to consider NFTs, the argument is not about NFT art. If you're talking about NFT art, arguing about NFTs, you've missed the point. Put it to one side, put it in a box, burn it, and then forget about it. So NFTs is like it's just a protocol ultimately that allows you to create a unique digital asset. That's the way to think about it. Now, what's the value of having a unique digital asset? And clearly, we all understand that has enormous value. If think about all of the important characters in our gaming lives. If they'd actually been ours, if we could have extracted them and sold them or whatever else, that's really really valuable. And that's only one example, but it goes a long way beyond that, I think, as well. So when I talked about that idea of a virtual world sitting on top of the physical world around us, you need to create a protocol base for the asset infrastructure of that world so people can be incentivized to create within it and own that value and transact that value. And clearly, NFTs are really good first step towards that. It doesn't like, and sorry, NFTs is the answer, but is the current protocol sufficiently effective to facilitate that? Well, time will tell because it hasn't been put under pressure from courts, for instance, and gone through a legal process, and that all needs to happen before we really understand what the opportunity is. A little, in to a degree, it's a little bit like the ICO hype cycle in 2017. It's not dissimilar to that in that like a lot of the NFTs are bullshit, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all of them are, and it doesn't necessarily mean that crypto was a bad idea at the time because there's a lot of fraud there. In the same way that it doesn't mean that NFTs are a bad idea now. They're not. NFTs are the idea of creating a protocol that facilitates unique digital assets that allows for provenance and smart contract infrastructure that can facilitate really sophisticated asset dynamics like royalties and licensing opportunities built into the asset. That's amazing. That's fascinating and fantastic. And like clearly it is one of the singular most legitimate uses of blockchain yet to be discovered. There's very few examples that I can think of that are more effective examples of the use of blockchain than a non-fungible token. The ability to create a unique digital asset. That's amazing. That's incredible. That's world-changing that we're able to create assets in a like a digital space. That's if you went back 20 years and tried to explain that to people, they wouldn't have got their heads around it. So I am hugely bullish on the future of NFTs, not hugely bullish on the current hype cycle. I think it's marketing really.
Yeah. Well, like we've actually got some. I'm going to open up to questions from the audience. So we got one question. Um, Please ask John about NFTs for digital ownership management of physical items like cars. I want to hear his take.
Yeah.
So I guess if an NFT can represent a digital item, can it not be used for a physical item? I guess that's what they're saying. And if anybody else has questions, just write in the Twitch chat and I'll pass them out. But yeah, go on. What's your take
Yeah,
on that?
so it can be, but it might not be necessary. You could create a security token instead, so it depends. I think about it this way. So with a car, it depends what you want to do. If you wanted to take a car, so the car is worth $20,000 and you wanted to securitize that car and sell tokens in it, and every token was worth the same, and then a security token is the right way to go. But if you wanted to sell specific pieces of that car, so if you wanted to sell the hubcap as one asset and you wanted to sell the steering wheel as another asset, well, then you'd use an NFT. But you can clearly see then why in a lot of instances, there's no point in creating an NFT for a physical asset. It just makes much more sense to create a security token. Effectively securitize the asset, and I don't know how much depth people want me to go into in this, but it doesn't need to be one asset either. You could buy 1,000 cars, and you could securitize. Maybe cars is a bad example because they depreciate. But let's say, for instance, it's an apartment. You buy an apartment, and then you issue security tokens on that apartment. So you create all this extra liquidity in the apartment. People are buying a token that provides them some of the rental income from that apartment. That makes a lot of sense. And
that's why you would use a token in that instance instead of, sorry, a security token instead of an NFT. You'd only use an NFT if there was something particular, if you wanted to sell, parts of the bedroom or certain items. And it's in terms of the proposition of creating tokens out of real world items, absolutely, we're going to see a ton of that. If I was going to say the thing for like, Wired asked me last year what what 2021 was going to be big on, and I said NFTs. If they ask me again this year, I'm going to say security tokens for next year, because security tokens are really meaningful because it gives everybody access to whole new asset spaces. If you wanted to invest in art or in wine or in luxury cars or whatever it is that are very expensive to buy, not everyone's going to go out and buy a Basquiat or a Warhol, but you could buy a token in one, and that's quite meaningful. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, apparently it doesn't. The guy was saying, he was saying, I was thinking more around streamlined ownership management with NFTs and smart contracts. NFT because the car is non-fungible for selling that specific car without going to the DMV or whatever it is where you have to go to transfer ownership.
Sure, yeah. Yeah,
So
this is
I guess
that's
they're
what,
saying the NFT represents a car directly. How
yeah.
an NFT could represent a digital car in a game or something, maybe.
Well, yeah. So, well, on the real car, yeah, it could be used like that. So, that's kind of how NFTs began. So, you might remember like colored coins from back in 2012. That was like probably the initial incentive behind NFTs and developing the protocol in Ethereum. So, that's still very much. And your question is actually about the documentation, I suppose. It's not about the car itself. It's about who owns the deeds to
Like
an
a
asset.
certificate of ownership.
Exactly, a certificate of ownership. And yeah, for that sort of stuff, 100%, absolutely. Does it require an NFT, or could it be done with like middleware infrastructure, like using like kind of Chainlink or something else from a centralized database, and then facilitating the exchange of it through a decentralized platform? It might be more efficient to do it that way, but in concept, the car example is like, it's like the Bitcoin pizza transaction. That car example was where NFTs started with colored coins and the ability to sell a token, a colored coin, and have that represent the physical asset, be a car, be it a house. So yeah, for that format, absolutely. And Ethereum now have a number of different styles of different protocols for their NFTs. There's kind of 3 or 4 different protocols they have now that can be used in different ways. And then some of the other blockchains are now releasing, like Tron have one, and Solana have one, and a couple of other ones have NFT like tokens as well. They all operate a little bit differently. I suspect that maybe one of them like will become a winner for certain types of assets. So like if you wanted to sell cars or buy cars, it might be somebody might have a protocol that's specifically tailored to that instead. So, but it's a perfect example. Your example, I think that that's a very, very, very likely to happen, but it requires infrastructure. Like it requires a marketplace, and it requires some intermediaries as well to establish fidelity of assets. Because while conceptually 100% you're correct, practically it gets really difficult, because when you engage in a crypto space, most people at most both endpoints tend to be anonymous, and then using cryptocurrency, which is reasonably private as well, makes it very difficult to understand who the two endpoints are. So there's a couple of issues. Practically, you're effectively doxing yourself making the transaction if when it's a physical asset, unless there's third party intermediaries that operate in the real world as brokerages, and they'll know who your identity is. So now you've just centralized something through in a decentralized process. The other problems with it are legal jurisdiction, and this is a really practical problem. But at the moment, with a lot of these tokens, it's difficult to know what jurisdiction, if there's a problem, what jurisdiction it should be heard in. Like, so if you're trying to buy a car and then the car is not as described, like there's damage to it, because it's unlike a digital asset, you don't have that easily verifiable fidelity factor with you have with a digital asset. So it's a little bit more complex. So in concept, you're absolutely right, but there needs to be a lot of infrastructure built around that process in order to make it work. And it might become more mainstream, um, because people might be in a locality, people are totally comfortable knowing who the buyer or seller is. but in the current framework or environment, it's a little bit tougher. I think that's my gut feeling anyway.
Yeah, I think he said, "Thanks, John. The idea with the Oracle and centralized databases makes sense." Um, yeah, I think it, in my opinion, I think there's a lot of I think because Bitcoin was the first blockchain, there's kind of been the line of thinking is we build NFTs on the same style of blockchain. But I kind of think perhaps the best way that NFTs will work will not necessarily be this, the type of blockchain that we have with Bitcoin and Ethereum. Just because I think there's an interesting, because an NFT isn't intrinsic to itself; it's linked to an item. So there's always some sort of point of, I wouldn't say failure, but like if you have an NFT that's linked to a spaceship in a game, the developer could still, in a centralized game, maybe there are decentralized games that change it, but they could still cut off access. And then, as you said, there's legal issues as well, right? So maybe it's not so much the super decentralized, everybody validates everything blockchain as Bitcoin. Maybe it's a bit more of a distributed ledger or different way. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a really good point. There's a lot of platform dependency for a lot of NFTs, and like that's a real problem. Like if the developer, if the publisher switches it off at some point and that's it gone, well, that was a huge dependency to bake into the value of the NFT in the first place. So it requires a lot of interoperability to be effective. And that's really problematic.
So
interoperability is not easy to do.
So just to jump in, I just want to clarify what you mean by interoperability. You mean the NFT itself is like the game item that you can pop it in one game and pop it in another game, rather like how games have like a shared type of file format or something. Is that what you're trying to say? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like so you've got a spaceship in EVE Online, and then you bump that over to another game and can use it there. Now, look, that's an unrealistic equivalence. I mean, there needs to, but it brings the point home that interoperability for in-game NFTs is kind of complicated. Having said that, it's not going, like, I know all the major gaming publishers are all working on NFTs at the moment, and they're going to create NFT-based platforms, but their focus is actually more on allowing people to create the experience and generate revenue from that environment and allow it to be created organically with them as middle, like an intermediary, rather than it being like a game that, like, so if I use like God of War as an example, that is a story-based game. There's not a whole lot of space for there. Of course, you could have NFTs in that for weapons and things as well, but it's a whole lot different to giving people a world, an open world with nothing there. Like imagine kind of a Civ 6 type environment where you've got open space, there's nothing built yet. You create stuff, and whatever you create, people can come and visit your space and they can pay for things on your space. They can transact with you, they can buy things, and you can make actual money out of that. That sort of infrastructure will incentivize NFTs in some form. And I know there's a lot of publishers working on that, but that's not easy. Interoperability, you got different engines. It's not a simple thing. So
we have it a little bit, I would say, at the moment. So there are like 3D model formats called FBX. I know if people try VR chat, like people can drop their own kind of like humanoid 3D models in there, and they kind of work, right? So there is a kind of, like there is like a shared file format within 3D modeling, which has kind of crept its way into gaming, but the functionality is a bit like how what animations are allowed and where the gun mounts to, and how. Although I think that kind of stuff is very game specific.
There's I mean, like, there are some examples. Like Crucible is an interesting example of a company that's like focused on the avatar as the mechanism of transference. So if you can imagine, like, as you're browsing the internet, forget gaming, just as you're making your way through the internet, being able to customize your experience at a higher level through NFTs, having an inbuilt wallet in your browser effectively, that provided identity infrastructure and anonymity. It was avatar led, so you identified not as like an evolution of a handle as an avatar, but linked to that avatar was a wallet where you could store NFTs and you could customize that experience. But then you take it one step further, and if you go back to what I was saying earlier on about physical landscapes, that's really where NFTs kind of come to life. The ability for people to be able to accessorize themselves as they're walking around the real world in a virtual space. So if I see you, Chris, and I'm not wearing like mixed reality lens where you look like you are now, but if I have contact lenses or glasses on, then I see much more. I see, like, you could be wearing anything. Like, you could be wearing something like really super cool couture, that's like that's dynamic and interactive. So with that sort of environment, I think that's really where NFTs break through. That's again why I think the kind of virtual landscape, the virtual metaverse, as we've all come to imagine it, is actually probably more difficult to build than this physical equivalent that is beginning to emerge. So
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be interesting going forward. I have a feeling whatever we say now, like we're like the people who were talking about how the internet's going to work in like 1980. You know, it's going to be the best newspaper ever or something. It's like it's going to get rid of the typewriter, maybe. So maybe in 10 or 20 years, it's going to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That use case that we hadn't thought about it, right?
yeah,
So it's just keep experimenting.
that's you build blocks. You can't see the future until you've kind of you've the future is built on blocks that are above our head.
Yeah.
Like we can't see the foundation of the future yet. We're looking up at it. And that's why if you go back 30 years and you ask people what the future is going to look like, they can't tell you what the future is going to look like because they don't know the blocks the future is built on yet. They haven't been created. So every new idea then creates a million more ideas. So it's always interesting to look back at those clips from the 90s where you've got like broadcasters learning about the internet for the first time and trying to interpret it and explain it to an audience. And it's too complex. Actually, one that really springs to mind, forget the internet, I think cloud. When cloud came around, like a normal audience really struggled with that as a concept. It did not make sense to people how the cloud worked. How could you possibly store information in a space that didn't exist, and how do you access it? And like if you had gone back to the year 2000 and you asked the average person, what is it that you want from your laptop in 5 years time or in 10 years time, they probably would have told you, I wanted lighter, I wanted faster, I want more memory, I want a bigger screen. They're the sort of things they would have told you. They probably wouldn't have told you, I want a tablet, I want a smartphone that can do everything my computer can. I want to be able to store all my information in the cloud, because they didn't know that could exist. And that's always the problem.
It's like the old Henry Ford thing, isn't it? I don't know if it's true,
Exactly.
but if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
That's exactly it. Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, it's user feedback is always really important, but user feedback is it's heuristics. It's not fundamentals. You've got to have visionaries and experts who are able to say, look, this is really complex. I can see something that nobody else can see because there's only a few people in the world who can understand it. And with that in mind,
and most of them will be wrong, but one of them will get it right.
One or two people will stick then. Yeah, you're right.
I remember before the iPhone came out, I was so big on like handheld PCs. I just wanted my handheld PC to do exactly what I could do on my main computer. I thought, just if these get better and better, the processors get better, that'll be it. But then the iPhone came out. I said, no, we need a completely different interface altogether. And now the PC, in a way, you could say like it's learned more from that new interface than the other way around. But
yeah, good point.
I was dead wrong.
But it's kind of it's the ability to adapt and adjust. Like when you feel like there's an intention that has fidelity, once the environment changes, that intention might not change. That might still be true, but you now need to reshape it and redesign it for an environment that is not what you expect it to be.
Indeed. Cool. We're just finishing up here, actually. I think this will be the last fun race, and we'll let you go. I'm not doing too well in this one either. But just before, I'm quite interested, just like what projects are you interested in at the moment in the space? I know you've mentioned Decentraland quite a lot of time. Would that say your favorite one, or do you have any others that people should check out?
I wouldn't say Decentraland is my favorite one. The thing about Decentraland is that it's both a success and a disaster. I
remember, I think I spoke to those guys, must have been 2000, maybe 15, maybe 14, no, maybe 15, 16. And they were offered me some free land. I think it was way back in the day, but I don't know who they were. But I'm interested to hear like where they are now.
So like I think they had a lot of momentum, and then they made some mistakes. I think in that they didn't allow the interoperability that let the artists in. Like all the artists went to crypto voxels instead, and they really benefited from it. There's also a real culture of like investment in Decentraland. People buy and hold. land instead of actually using it or doing anything with it. So there's not a whole lot of active users, active players, but everybody's waiting for it to explode. So they're all holding the land, and values are going up. And but the things that did really well, like Decentraland created its own cryptocurrency, Mana, which I think is what's necessary when you create a platform like that. When you create a world, you've got to have your own currency. I think it's really important because it gives that currency a purpose and like a place where it's got exclusive use. And I think that's a really clever mechanism to have. So they built something really professional, but it just hasn't maybe taken off the way they would have hoped it would take off. But it's always a good kind of reference point. Ultimately, look, out of all those types of platforms, the one that's still the most successful and it's not decentralized is Second Life. Second Life is extraordinary. It's kind of so resilient, and incredible things happen on Second Life. Like Second Life is one of the most fascinating places on the internet and remains to this day. I think it's an incredible platform, but they're a centralized platform. But at the same time, I think centralized players last year extracted $75 million of currency from Second Life. As in, like, these are businesses and people who work in Second Life. That's what they extracted. So that's a really meaningful contribution to a lot of people's lives, whilst also providing a platform that people enjoy. I think it gets overlooked because it's old, but it's a great story.
This is interesting. Yeah, so it's kind of like, I think it's always difficult for a new platform to kind of gain traction. So existing platforms, if they start to open up a little bit more with crypto, maybe that's where we'll kind of see the real success stories take off, or maybe it won't be. Who knows?
Well, it's hard to. It's like the Decentraland example that they've effectively done that, but because we're in the middle of a crypto boom, everybody just wants to buy and hold. The values are going up, but nothing's happening, and that's problematic. So we're kind of like we're on the cusp of something significant happening. I just think it needs a couple of breakthroughs. The problem is those breakthroughs are going to be, in all likelihood, they're going to be led by large organizations who want to centralize large parts of that functionality. So it's a kind of a tricky dilemma at the moment. We'll see how it plays out, but I think I think you asked what projects we're focused on in this space, or was it as well? No, sorry, you said what projects do I like in this space?
Yeah.
I think the one I'm really fascinated by at the moment that's only starting out is Ryan Gill's Crucible. I think that's fascinating. I'm really taken by that. And that's going to be very interesting. It's very early stage, but I think that's worth keeping an eye on and seeing how that develops over the next 24 to 36 months.
What is that project? You mentioned it before, but Crucible.
Yeah, it's worth having a look at. It's still it is still very early stage. I suspect that we'll only begin to see kind of public glimpses of it in the next maybe by the end of the summer. Which is something to keep a lookout for. If you I would recommend keeping an eye out for Crucible, and if you can get involved early, I think that's one that has real merit. Probably the most promising one.
What is it? I'm confused. What it is? It's a project. I know that, but like
it is, and I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to say.
Okay, so that's fair enough. Sorry.
But
okay. Got you.
What I can say, I think, is that like the avatar infrastructure that they've built for identity infrastructure on the internet is really interesting. But beyond that, it's kind of a new metaverse capacity that is more advanced than anything else I've seen. So and there's gaming within it as well. So decentralized gaming within that environment. But it looks very cool.
Awesome.
I think they're going to do a great job.
We'll make sure to check that out. Anyway, I'm conscious that it's late there, but I've kept you on for too long. But yeah, I'll just say it's great having you on here, and thanks again for the sponsorship and the tournament. Before I let you go, is there anything you just want to say to the viewers? How can they find out more about you? What should they follow on Twitter, etc.?
Yeah, look, we would love if people checked out our work. We publish a lot of free research that we do on foresight work. You can see it on our website, atelier.net. That's atelier.net. And you can find out more about us there, and then follow us on Twitter as well, I suppose. But we look at what the future holds, and we tend to get there before a lot of other companies because of our methodology. So And we build for the web, like all of our research. We don't publish white papers, we publish immersive and interactive experiences. So hopefully people enjoy it. Go take a look at our virtual economy piece. If you want to find out more about it, then we've got a couple of different newsletters that you can sign up to in English and French about the work that we're doing.
Awesome, that sounds great. So yeah, so definitely check that out, folks. And yeah, just a big thanks. I think what you're doing in this space is incredible. Like you, of course, this is an example of it, you know. And I look forward to kind of see what you guys, I guess, research and come up with later. I know actually we can't say, but John and I, we have been speaking about other things that we can do, collaborations and fun kind of giveaways. So hopefully in the future we'll have kind of even more exciting tournaments and things that people can do. But I'll stop there. So definitely an exciting space to experiment in.
Thanks, Chris, for having me, and thanks everybody for listening, and good luck to everybody racing as well. I hope you guys make tons of cash out of it. So talk to you all soon.
Always. Okay. See you. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to end with one more fun race here, folks. So yeah, apologies for the issue with the main race kind of froze. It was my Windows computer froze for like a second, and then the game didn't like that. I don't know. It happens sometimes. Anyway, but let's do another fun race, and then we'll call it a night. If anybody does have any questions they want to ask, you can still write in the Twitch, and I'm happy to answer them. But let's kick off. Only 7. We still got a few places for other people. If anybody else wants to jump on, I'll give a few more seconds for somebody to do that. And maybe I'll do another question, actually. I might do another question in the audience. So the question will be, what position will I come? So I'm playing in this one. What? Can't spell today. So my H key didn't work, that's why. Will I finish? My keyboard is broken, folks. The keys aren't clicking. What position will I finish? And well, we know I'm not going to finish first. So let's say 7th or above. No. Seventh or lower. Third or under. And let's do 7th or lower, third or under. Let's do 7th or over. Let's change this to 6th or under. Okay, so will I finish third, first, second, third, under third? Will I finish? Don't type anything yet. It won't work. Okay. Yeah, so will I finish over 7th? So that's like, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Will I finish third or under, first, second, or third? Or will I finish 6th or under? I'm sure there's a better way to write that out. So 6th or under would be like, I guess, 4th, 5th, or 6th. So I guess somewhere in the start, B, somewhere in the middle, C, somewhere at the end, A. Okay, Raphael Pack thinks I'm going to finish third or under. And I will send these stats out tomorrow. I can't send them out automatically just at the moment. Okay, Hamid saying C, 6 or under. Probably. I'd imagine I don't actually race too well when I'm like talking and hosting. Got another C. People don't have faith in me, which is probably wise. Okay, who we got? Give it 10 more seconds, folks. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we'll start the race and then we'll find out what position I'll come. I think I'm going to try my best, but I think I'm going to become C, 6th or under. Okay, I'm trying to focus here. Oh, damn, already being hit. Sixth. So I'm currently C, I think. Whoa. Okay, through the gravestones. Okay, 4th. This is not too bad. If I can finish 3rd or under, I'll pay less people money. Oh, get out of the way, Raphael. Oh, 3rd. Oh, no. Ah. Ah, no. Damn, hit the gravestone. Oh, I lost a few seconds there. This is a difficult track, isn't it? And the gravestone's coming up. It's the coin. There we go, the coin. I don't see anyone ahead of me, which is annoying. I need to see somebody ahead of me. Otherwise, I'm not going to overtake anybody. Final lap. Can I... Well, I think I saw somebody scoot past then. Mushroom power-up, but the mushroom power-up doesn't help too much here because it's too narrow. Okay, that helped me actually. I was bouncing off the walls there. Still only 4th. I don't think I'm going to manage to overtake anybody. Come on. No, I think the 3rd place is way too far ahead of me. I can see them there. Can I just... Oh. We can get him... Nah, he's miles ahead. Okay, I'm coming in 4th. Well, I haven't finished yet. So, what was the answer? Uh, 6th or under, so the answer was C. So well done to Hamid, Gracie, and Profi Nubara for having some faith in me. It wasn't the worst option. Oh yeah, let me click that for someone to withdraw. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. So this was the 3rd race in the Atelier tournament. Join us next Sunday for the 4th race, which will be using the Frontier track, which is a track. It's not in the game at the moment, so that'll be added as an update next week. And we're going to do some practice. So if you're around, say on Thursday or Friday night, we're probably going to do some practice laps around that track. So make sure to join that. But join us for the main event next Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully we'll have another guest on and we're going to do some more fun Q&A giveaways and have some more fun races. Anyway, I've been Mandelduck and thank you for watching.